Hey Ryan, thanks so much for the call. It's so good to see you. I think the last time we saw each other was at Maker Faire Orlando, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we met at Maker Faire Orlando. I think like 4 years ago now. Do you remember how old
Yeah.
you were?
I was 6, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy because ever since then, every year we see each other again at Maker Faire Orlando. You come visit us to
It's
say hi.
very weird. It's like, and last year I was actually a maker.
Yeah, yeah, that was really fun because you came kind of as a Battlebots fan for
Yeah.
3 or 4 years, and then all of a sudden this year, or I guess last year, I saw you had your own project there.
Yeah.
So I saw your alpaca. You told me a little bit about it, but we were short on time. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
The alpaca was a motorized walking machine originally, but due to the limitations on the motor, it didn't really properly function, and we had to put it on a stand so it actually had the movement.
So it like couldn't walk under its own weight, but it still did all the motions, right?
Yeah. If we just, my dad was actually able to push it up and it would walk, but like just like that much would make it work. It was weird.
That's awesome. I remember the photos on your poster board. You had to learn how to weld for it. You had gears and sprockets and all
Yeah.
sorts of complicated things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
was
had
super
to
impressed.
find some broken bikes actually to get the gears.
Oh, that's a great idea. Awesome. Yeah, it was great to see you as a maker. I'm sure we're going to see you as a maker every year from now on.
Probably.
Are you working on anything for the next one?
Currently I don't really have anything yet, but I'm really hard thinking on it.
Yeah, you have like 6 months. So you have plenty of time. I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
come up with something cool. So that very first time we met at Maker Faire Orlando, it was actually the only year of Maker Faire that Witchdoctor actually competed. So like, at Maker Faire, they actually have a big arena and they compete 250-pound robots, but under different rules. So the arena is not quite strong enough to handle like Battlebots level
Yeah.
of destruction. So we actually took Witchdoctor and we replaced the weapon with giant tires.
Yeah, that was cool.
Pop up the other robot instead of actually doing damage, but you still saw robots fly, right?
Yeah, like literally, you threw one into a wall.
Yeah, when you see these robots weigh 250 pounds. So when you see them in person, you feel like, the whole cage rattles basically.
Yeah.
So I remember that event, you were sitting very close to the glass. You were very excited about it.
Yeah.
And at the end, Mike noticed he was driving Witchdoctor and he drove up to you and gave you a high five with the robot.
Yep.
So that was super fun. I'm still looking for a picture of that moment because it's one of my favorite moments. Um, and you remembered it because when you saw me at Maker Faire this year, you even brought it up. So I don't know that Witchdoctor has high-fived any other BattleBots fan. So that's a special moment with Witchdoctor that you have.
Yeah. Speaking of this year's Maker Faire, did you expect your book to actually be like a signing book?
No, that was a super nice surprise. So
Yeah, that was interesting.
yeah, I wrote the book for kids because there's so many kids like you that, you live in Orlando, so you're about 4 hours north of us. So even though I'd love to build a robot with you, it's really hard because we live far apart. So the book is kind of for a lot of kids like that don't really have a chance to interact with us, really closely. But yeah, I figured, some kids would like it, consider like really, really obsessed with BattleBots. But
Yeah.
at Maker Faire, the response was incredible. And since there were a lot of other teams there, a lot of the fans would buy the book and then walk around and have Tombstone sign it and Shredderator sign it.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was really cool. I actually did the same thing. I took the idea from the fans and I went around and got my own book signed by all our friends. So that was really, really fun.
Agreed.
So for this year, you went to Maker Faire and there were more BattleBots teams than ever, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of your favorite teams to meet there?
Witchdoctor.
Well, we had met already.
Yes. Tombstone was there as well. Huge. We also had.
How big Huge really is.
Yeah, huge is, well, huge. No pun intended.
Never.
And there's also Hypershock.
Yeah. So Hypershock lives really close to us, so we're friends, on and off the show. But I know that he was a big fan of your alpaca project too. I saw him checking it out for a while.
Yeah.
So at Maker Faire, we were really busy and there were a lot of people there. But did you have any questions for me that you want to ask now that we have a little more time together?
How can a kid my age kind of get started?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you haven't jumped in yet because you've been so good building mechanical things. But we'd love to have you as a competitor. I'm actually sitting at Miami Makerspace, which is a makerspace that our team started to teach kids like you how to build robots.
That's cool.
So we've had kids as young as 5, although obviously they need some parents' help. But kids around the age of 8 is where they start being able to do it on their own. So I think you'd be a perfect age now to get started.
Yeah, I'm intending to come soon.
Yeah, we'd love to have you at one of our classes. Obviously now with the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to stop for a little while, but we'll make up for it when we start again. We were supposed to have an event at Maker Faire Miami, which has been postponed to August now, so maybe you can come and check that out with us.
Maybe.
But basically our classes start with a robot kit for a 1-pound fighting robot. So you don't need to learn how to machine stuff or weld stuff or anything for your first robot. You can kind of like plug the components together, learn what each part does, and just get experience competing first, because competing is really hard. You're driving the robot, you have to fix the robot, you have a bunch of people watching you perform, so I'm a big fan of starting simple and then making something more complicated.
What was your first robot?
I wish I had started with a small robot. So these small robot classes, like I said, it's 1-pound robot. So you take the whole Battlebots game and you scale it down, which is awesome. That wasn't around, at least at the school that I was when I started. So I started in high school. I was 14. And Battlebots wasn't on TV, but there was a competition called Battlebots IQ, which was very similar, but basically for high school and colleges. So my first Battlebot or combat robot was actually a 120-pound robot.
Wow, that's a lot to get started with.
Yeah, it's hard because it's expensive and you have to learn a lot more things to get started. And no matter what, the first robot that you build, it's not going to be great, right? Because it's the first thing. Anytime you do the first thing, it's harder. So it's really hard to have that first experience on something that's really big and heavy and expensive. So whereas a robot like that costs a few $1,000s to build, a 1-pound robot like the kit that we used for a class only costs about $200 to get started, including everything like controller, charger. So it's a lot more accessible. So even though I started with a big robot because that's what my school was doing, I would definitely recommend starting with the little robots. And
yeah, my alpaca weighed like 90 pounds.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? If you were building like a little alpaca, you could kind of figure out all of the hard mechanical parts and then scale it up.
We actually did that with also wood.
Yeah, Witchdoctor is a 250-pound robot, but we built a 120-pound version and competed that years before, so we kind of refined the design like that. But you saw at Robot Ruckus at Maker Faire Orlando the small fighting robots there?
Yeah.
So you saw the size of the arena, and there's like 1-pound robots, 3-pound robots. And those events happen all over the country, every month. So even though we compete on Battlebots once a year, we compete at those smaller events almost every month.
Cool.
So yeah, come by for our next class and then we'll get you in the arena.
Sounds good. What's your job when you're not doing Battlebots?
So I was a robot builder first, and because I like building robots so much, I wanted to find a job where I could build robots for a living. I didn't quite do that, but I studied biomedical engineering, so I designed medical devices.
That's cool.
So you might have seen the name Zimmer Biomet on Witchdoctor because they were our sponsor. So let's say you get in like a really bad car accident, let's say, and you break your wrist, but it doesn't just break in one line. It breaks into a lot of little pieces. If you just put a cast on it, then what happens is that those little pieces heal in the wrong place. And then it's hard to open and close your hand's not as strong. It causes a lot of problems. So the products that I make is actually a titanium plate that uses screws to put those fragments back into place and then hold them exactly where they're supposed to be. So instead of wearing a cast for like 3 or 4 weeks, as soon as you have the surgery, then you're back to normal. You can start using your wrist again.
That's cool.
So it's not quite building robots, but it is learning how to fix things that are broken. And you know, Battlebots break a lot.
Do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, robots is a pretty big hobby. A lot of people think that we do this professionally, but this is just a hobby with, you know, me and my friends. We just reached out to our friends and say, hey, you guys want to build a robot together? But we all have normal jobs, so that's really my biggest hobby. I also like musical theater a lot, so I go to watch musicals a lot.
Nice.
I don't sing, I don't act. I just like to go watch them. And right now I'm trying to learn how to play the piano, which is really, really hard. But it's
Understandable. I tried once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get to play some of the songs I like from the musical, so it's been fun. And now that we're quarantined, I have extra time for that.
After you learn how to play the piano, I bet you could build a robot that could literally play the same song.
I think it'd probably be easier to build a robot than it would be to actually learn how to play the piano. That's a good idea.
Is everyone in the pits friendly, or are they spies? Cough, cough, shatter.
Yeah, you know, we're trying to make good TV, so some of those things are exaggerated for TV. I remember that Shadow. I think they used this on the show. He came by with a pool noodle, and he was just like waving it over our robot, but really he was measuring like how far he would have to hit.
Yeah, they use that.
We're all really good friends. I mean, building robots is a pretty unique hobby, and when we get to meet other people who build robots just like us, you're like instantly best friends. So everybody goes out to dinner. We go out to dinner with like a table of 50 people every night at Battlebots, and it's a lot of fun. Of course, it's also really competitive, right? We're competing on national television. The stakes are high. So we're very friendly, but as soon as that door is locked, Tombstone's not going to take it easy on you. We're not going to take it easy on you. So it's very serious, but everybody's really good friends.
Understandable.
Yeah, once you start building your own robots, that's something that we try to teach the kids that build robots with us, because it's really easy to get overly competitive. They kind of forget that you're really doing this for fun. And if you win first place or second place, like if you ask me right now how I did in an event I competed at 2 years ago, I won't remember, but I'll remember the people that I competed with and what I learned from them. So winning is important, and it's challenging, and it's what keeps you motivated, but it's important to have fun and appreciate the people that you're working with.
Is Battlebots cost friendly?
Cost friendly?
Yeah.
Like money?
Yes.
See, I'm afraid that because people see Battlebots before they see any other kind of robot fighting, that they think that you need to have $10,000 to get involved. Battlebots is expensive on the TV show because we're building 250-pound robots.
Wow.
And we're fighting literally the best robots in the world, right? So you have to be, this is the Olympics of Battlebots, you know, and nobody starts at the Olympics. So if you talk about whether skiing is expensive, it's not expensive when you start, but it's expensive when you go to the Olympics, you know. So yes, these big robots are expensive, but we don't build them out of our own pocket. We have sponsors. That's why you see sponsor logos on our robot. If you follow us on social media, you see that we love our sponsors and we give them a lot of support, because when they help you and they support you by giving you money or making parts for your robot, you have to keep in mind that they're doing it before your robot even exists. We have to call up our sponsors and say, hey, Mastercam, we're thinking of building a new Witchdoctor like this. Do you want to be part of it? And it might be a failure, right? It might not win any matches. And they support you before they know that. So they really make the sport possible.
How do you get sponsors?
Sponsors, even being on TV, it can be hard to get sponsors. For us now, since we've been on the show for 4 seasons, we're starting to get to the point where sponsors are reaching out to us because they know who Witchdoctor is. We were sponsored for the past few seasons by Vex Robotics. I don't know if maybe you have Vex at your school.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, it's a popular robotics program now for kids. But they just happened to be visiting Battlebots during one of our matches, and they liked our robots, so they decided to support us. Other sponsors like Kalamazoo Waterjet, we just sent them an email. It's just like we sent a bunch of companies. and they've actually been sponsoring us since before it was even on TV. So, you know, it's a lot about being passionate about what you're doing and just calling up a lot of companies and saying, hey, I'm doing this really cool thing. This is why it's awesome. And do you want to be part of it? But I'll tell you that we get a lot of no's for every yes. You know, we probably approach 100 companies to get 5 companies to say yes. And it was the same in high school. We had to do the same thing, but it was smaller companies. But if you're just looking to get started, I wouldn't worry about getting sponsors. It's, you know, it's cheap enough at the starter level that you can do it on your own and then kind of work your way up to sponsors.
Do you have any advice on what I should do or know?
For your first robot?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think my biggest advice to you is that you probably have a really complex design in your head because you've been watching Battlebots a bunch and you know exactly what you think is going to win. And maybe that shouldn't be the very first robot you build. I think it's more valuable to start with something simple and get the experience competing. And it might even change your mind about what you want to build once you actually see what you feel comfortable driving and how the event works. So I think it's better to get out to your first event as quickly as you can, which you've actually already done, even though you haven't competed. You've watched matches, so that's already a big step. Usually that's my first advice, is just go to an event, talk to the builders there, watch some matches, take some notes, and then come back to the next event. But yeah, if you could come down to one of our classes, great. If you can't, I'll put a link to the kit that we use because it's really very simple and very inexpensive. And I'm sure with the help of your parents, you can build it.
Okay.
So, Orion, it has been so awesome to talk to you. I really hope I can see you at the next Maker Faire and that the world goes back to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We're still hoping to film Battlebots this year, so hopefully you'll see us on TV soon, maybe before Maker Faire. Fingers crossed. If you want to see us at Maker Faire Miami, that's in August. Maker Faire Orlando has the big robots fighting, and that's in November. And that one's local to you, so I know you'll be there. Thanks, Orion. This has been super fun, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.